Hi.
Let's get this out of the way first. That's a dope-ass t-shirt.
Here it is. I wore it on purpose. I'm building a brand right now.
The brand is built already. When I saw that shirt, I was like, yep.
It's coming. Hex code. Yep.
HC, hex code, link right under the cat. Just click right here. Will Wright, welcome to Chit Chat with Pillow Cat.
Did you come up with that?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
He came up with this.
Oh. It's pretty hip. Honestly, like, I feel like maybe a lot of points that are made on your vlog are going to be lost by the hypnotic gaze.
He's intense. I don't know if he's happy or sad, but he's always 100%.
Well, his entire life is processing a bunch of bulleted information about companies. Do you know how unusual that is for a cat?
Especially for a cat.
Yeah. First of all, this cat was born a pillow. Everything about this cat's life is an anomaly. Look at those eyes. Hello, darkness.
Hey, man.
I don't hate it. I'm just saying, but I have to process it.
We're going to be all right. So, you're here because...
You asked me.
I asked you to be here, and you foolishly said yes.
I have a lunch break.
For anyone who does not know you, I think most people will know you, but Cineriu, Lil Iffy, Peak Physique with me. What else? I mean, good Lord.
I do stuff.
You pick it up from there.
Yeah, I mean...
You're composing now.
Yeah, a lot of film stuff and ensemble stuff now. But, video work.
Mm-hmm.
Just jack of many, many formats.
So I admire a lot about you. The thing that I admire the most about you is the way you can see, like, let's take Peak Physique, for instance. Early in Peak Physique's life, I was still thinking about, like, how's this kick drum sound? How's this snare going to work? What are these sounds going to be? And you were already 5 years down the road with, like, the way we were going to dress, the lighting, the name of the band, how we talked about ourselves, what our bio was going to be. Those are things that personally I think of last. It's just I don't have a brain for that kind of thought process. You've done that with Cineriu. You've done it with your personal brand. You've done it with Lil Iffy. I would love to just hear however you want to talk about it, any advice you can give for how to, like, set that brand up.
Well, I think for me, for starters, I feel like a lot of that stuff is useless if the kick drum doesn't sound great. And so I feel like Peak Physique is kind of a creative success anyways, because you have maybe somebody attacking from one side and then the other person attacking from the other side. For me personally, and I did try to sorry to say every time. I did try to approach Peak Physique with a lot of the things that I learned from Iffy, and maybe in my rock and roll, my, like, band work, I approach things the same as you, where I kind of get tied up in the studio and kind of tied up in the minutia on the musical end of things, where with Iffy, I really tried to experience it from the perspective of the audience, and I tried to start at the finish line and then back through the details. So by the time I get to fine-tuning the kick drum, there's a path forward because I kind of got there backwards. And so trying to experience the prototype from the audience perspective is, I feel applicable for whatever kind of brand you're dealing with. It might even sound cliche, but it becomes a cliche because it's right, a lot of times, at least in this realm. And so I think trying to experience what you're trying to build from the perspective of your customer, perspective of your audience, and to kind of get ahead of yourself in a positive way, I guess, and see maybe when you imagine the finish line, imagine yourself at the finished product, a bunch of it is wrong.
Yeah.
You know, then you can kind of get ahead of your own mistakes.
Yeah.
Look at your idea. Just because it's your ideal doesn't mean that it's ideal, you know? And,
I remember we were working on, I forget what track it was. We set a studio date to work on a specific Peak song, and you showed up and you were like, dude, I have an idea. Let's start a new track. Imagine a whole audience singing back, I want you and I don't give a fuck who knows. And I was just like, I can't think that way. Like, I can't start a song with that in my head. Like, what's the most satisfying thing for an audience goer to be singing in unison that's going to give them that kind of Peak experience? And we built the song backwards from there.
Build it from the moment. You don't have to find, you know, sort of the climax if you build away from it. You know, you find that, like, game-winning home run, and then you kind of build the rest of the story around it. Because if you know this is where I want to end up, then you sort of establish as much of that as you can on the front side. And the same way goes, I think, with even outside of the musical realm. You have to dress for the job that you want. Mm-hmm. You know, I guess is the, like, Hall of Fame cliche about it, but figure out exactly where you're going, and then if you can fill in some of the journey initially, maybe you can knock out a milestone 7 while you're working on 1 through 6.
Yeah. Because
it's not necessarily reliant. You know, you can go ahead and start your song at the big moment, because then you can kind of see how much real estate you have between your intro and your climax. Yeah. And that way maybe your build-up isn't as organic as it would be if you got there linear, but it will be more measured, and to me that's way more valuable. So with Iffy, everything I did was deconstructed. Yeah. Everything, and to be fair, the whole experience was lightning in a bottle, and it never happens. And really, you know, it, as modest as the success with it was, for me, the satisfaction in it was just being able to establish those main milestones, and then just once you have them in place, you can just kind of play, you know, and just kind of try things.
So walk us through, like, the beginnings of that. When you decide you're going to do the thing, like, you and Tom were talking, were the ideas musical first? Did you think of the image first? Did you think of the name first? How did you, if someone looks at Lil Iffy and goes, how did that get started? How did that turn into what it is? In your mind, building it, how did you build it?
Well, the name is a pretty good example of experiencing your product through the eyes of your audience, because, you know, I feel like if I were a first timer, if I was a stranger walking into a Lil Iffy show and I saw me on the stage with all of my, like, absolutely not rapper friends, just all sweating and, like, howling about magic spells and things like that, I would be like, and so calling it, like, a Lil Iffy, I feel like it was kind of forgiving. Sure. But it most certainly is a conscious way to communicate to the audience that I know what you're looking at right now. Trust me.
I'm here with you.
Yeah, I know. And a lot of the things that I do are sort of maybe not born from, but they're fertilized in, like, deep sort of existential frustration. And so I had been writing my ass off and, like, writing songs as hard as I could for Sinru for so long, and, like, it hits a point where the songs keep coming, and then it's like, what am I doing? Like, am I going to be 80 years old and I've written 5,000 songs, and I just kind of stopped, you know? I kind of stopped myself, and then I was stopped. Yeah. And I couldn't resume once the moment passed. And so it was more just excuse to try something. And again, like the value of just kind of boldly flopping around creatively is it can't be overstated.
Yeah.
You know, the value of just trying things, because there's no logical path to make the decision to write a bunch of stupid songs. You know what I mean? Like, really one stupid song that just kind of forced my hand, because I was in no position to turn down work. And the one stupid, like, let's just try it, it'll be hilarious. You know, it basically says, like, would you like to work? You know, like, you're the aspiring musician, would you like to perform music for a few years? You know, and there's no logical path to that point. You just have to kind of try things, and whatever works. You know, the successful business is supposed to be like a 1 in 10 and 1 in 10 endeavor, and so
I think that's 100% true, but I think so many artists especially start doing stuff without any long-term goal. Like, they don't think about the reason they're doing it.
Well, there's a value to sort of arriving at things organically, I think, because when it's fully contrived, and again, it can work to your advantage to really have like a battle plan, and to, I think you see this a lot in Nashville and things like that, where it's, someone is interested in putting together a musical experience for people. We'll have this kind of a bass player, we'll have this, and like, we'll have these people write the songs for it, and it will be perfectly branded and things like that. There's a value in that in a certain realm, but for me, everything I do has to be a little bit, I have to get there a little bit organically, or I just check out. If it's just, it feels contrived to me, I have to check out.
Well, but that's the lightning in the bottle of the stuff you're involved in, is none of it reads as inauthentic. Like, when you go see Lil Iffy,
oh, we mean it.
No matter what your experience is the first time you see it, whether you're into it or not, you're at least going to A, stick around for the whole thing. B, you're going to read the authenticity on the stage. Everybody up there wants to be there. Everybody up there knows the songs. It's not bullshit. Like, it might be tongue in cheek at times. It might be like with the intention of fucking with somebody, but it's from an authentic place.
It is what it is. Something we have a long time bass player in Sinru, Andres McCormack, and some of those early Sinru songs are pretty like fiery. It was written from like a young energy perspective and things like that. And when he plays those songs, he just plays them. Like, you never get a bunch of snarling, and he just plays the song, and it's not his process to pretend to be furious and things like that. And because of that, I've always loved watching him play those songs, because it's so removed from the original song, but it somehow to me is even more the authenticity of just kind of coldly kind of boring through like a high energy, like just a fast, furious song, and he's just kind of in the pocket experiencing it in his own way. That to me, I think, translates so much. I think there's a lot of the currency that passes back and forth between, especially in a live situations, the currency that passes between a performer and an audience stretches so much further when it's believable, even when it's music as ridiculous as what we do with Iffy, or at times even in Peak Physique, when you're trying to communicate a lot of kind of it's a sexual theme a lot of times, and it's a lot of kind of visceral stuff, but when it's kind of delivered pretending to embody your lyrics is not the same. Pretending to embody your songs is not the same as authentically performing them.
100%.
And I feel like that currency, the emotional currency and the creative currency, and the creative, the economy between performers and audience and recording artists and listeners goes so much further when you can communicate an authentic presentation. So
Yeah.
it's really important to me from the initiation of ideas for it to be somewhat organic, you know, even in how you come to decide in the plans, come to decide on things. I feel like you have to let it breathe.
I think, yeah, 100%. And like the most successful things that we've done together with Peak, for just as an example, I think are those moments where we're just playing around with a beat, or playing around with a chord progression or a lyric. And then once we get the sound or we get the groove, both of us feel it. We say, okay, that's the thing. Now we move forward. And like, if we don't get to a point where we feel something, we just keep looking and keep digging. And that looking and digging isn't predicated upon we have to stay in these boundaries. Like, we're just looking for something that has some sort of sauce. Like, it has nothing to do with, sometimes it is like, we're going to write a song like this.
Yeah.
Like, we have a grid that we're working on, but we're not looking specifically to fit anything within, you know, a certain sound or a certain beat until we find something that like connects with us.
Yeah, I think the creative process in a collaborative setting like that is always, there has to be some kind of space to exist within. So maybe it's not, we're going to write a song like this, or maybe it's not, it's time to write a fast one, or it's time to write a slow one, but there is sort of a, and I think probably better musicians don't need a sandbox to live in as much as we do, probably, but at any rate, it's less about the grid, I think, and you know, and more just kind of about just kind of finding people you can work with who you can authentically explore with, you know. And a lot of times one song idea ends up cracking into 3 songs or whatever. Maybe 3 song ideas all kind of get lost in the fog and come back out as one, you know, and it's not important. You know, unless you're on the verge of making a fortune, you know, then we're all out here trying to do a thing we like to do, or we're driving ourselves crazy thinking about how rich we could be if anyone understood our music.
Usually a fine blend of both.
And it's all just kind of crazy. It's all like hobbyist psychosis, but like
it is.
But yeah, I mean, everybody. I think the most important thing, whether you're building a brand to sell clothing, or you're building a brand to sell songs, or you're not trying to sell anything, I think the most important thing to do out of the gate is like, you have to figure out what your desire structure is, and you have to, you know, this is business 101, but you have to set sort of even the vaguest ladder of goals. Like, what would be a satisfying milestone for this? Maybe it's 50 followers on a social account, or maybe it's 10 downloads of a remix that you put up on SoundCloud or something, or you know, or anything. You have to have an idea, not even just about what would satisfy you, but you need to know why you're doing it. And if you're doing it to make money, like, don't be ashamed of it. But if you're doing it to make money, don't pretend that you aren't. You know, if you're doing it to make money, then there are examples for you. There are people that are making money doing what you want to do, and you should absolutely exploit every bit of information that you can get from their stories, because they've already made the mistakes for you. If you're doing it to satisfy yourself creatively and whatever else happens is just icing, I think that's ideal.
I mean, that's the place where all of us were at some point.
Most
of us that are
really
sitting where we are. I mean, I remember feeling very intensely from early on with Peak, like walking into waters that I wasn't super comfortable with. The thing that is exciting about it is the collaborative nature, but also doing things that I've never done before. Like, I've never experimented with this kind of drum setup before. I've never experimented with something that was so heavily reliant on computer. And for me, it was a welcoming into audience engagement much more than anything I've ever done before, because it's always been constrained to performing, and you have engagement when you're performing, of course, but not to the extent where it's like a part of the band. Like,
and you're a drummer.
Yeah. It's so alien for me.
Always safe.
Yeah. No matter what, I'm fine.
And no one ever judges the drummer for not engaging the audience because you're doing more than anyone else on the stage.
Totally.
Just carrying your drums to the show has already satisfied your quota for investment.
Yeah.
If a drummer comes in and brought all of his stuff from the house and sets it up, and then he kind of like
job done,
snoozes through the show, you got to be like, this is probably a lot of work.
But for me, it always maintained excitement and that original feeling, back from like when you first learned about songwriting, because it was new territory for me. It's continually new territory for me. And I think the part of my brain that enjoys production and enjoys songwriting and performing is that part of the brain. Yeah. Like if it's something I've done 600 times, at that point it's literally just clocking in, clocking out at a certain point.
Yeah, Peak obviously presented a new kind of challenge for me, because I've always kind of given, like, here's the song, and then we'll figure the details out together in a group or in a whatever. But in a purely like truly collaborative setting like that, you really kind of have to learn how to not be a fucking baby. And you have to learn
hard.
You have to meeting someone halfway when you've always been kind of like a jolly little dictator, like listen to my idea, it's the rules. The amount that it cultivates so much perspective, and it forces you to edit, and that's hard, when you love your ideas, and I think, in a manner of speaking, anyone that is going to go through the kind of abject hell to foster any kind of even the illusion of a career, or the illusion of the aspiration of a career in a creative form, again, whether it's graphic tees, songs, home studio, anything. If you're willing to do the kind of things that the system as it is like will put you through in order to make crumbs, you gotta love your idea.
It's a common theme on this couch, man. Every person I have talked to has said some version of that same thing.
You have to.
If you're this age and you want to do this thing in any sort of serious capacity, you better be ironclad with how you feel about it. Oh yeah,
because the amount that you'll resent the investment, I think, immediately if you don't mean it. And you see the people who think they're about that life get, especially you see folks that might have a rock and roll fantasy that end up in a touring ensemble who jump out of the pants so
pretty fast.
Because it sucks. And if you love it, it doesn't change that it sucks. It's just worth it. But I feel like working in a collaboration really forces you to kind of mean it if you do, because if you don't love your ideas when you're completely in control, you will fucking hate your ideas when you are forced to show some restraint about them.
And we've had songs that come across the plate where one of us feels real strong about something, the other one either goes, okay,
we're both pleasers though, so really
I don't feel as strong as you do, so sure, why not?
Right. And we just end up sitting in silence going like, well, maybe we should try
let's just bounce it like it is.
Okay.
We'll think about it. Live with it for a few months.
And then we'll both listen to it, and then we both come back and apologize because it's who we are. And we'll be like, no, let's do it your way. And they'll be like, no, you were right the whole time. And then we'll be like, and then we'll fight about who was right. And because the only pleasure either one of us really gets in life is to appease the needs of the people we care about. And so
100%.
yeah, it's really dark.
My mom did that to me. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mom. Shout out to Mom.
Shouts out to all the therapists out there.
People pleasers.
That's right. And so the need to ring the bell to be the mother's boy is it really all of your like in a what I'm finding is that in a true like a head-to-head collaboration, because there are a lot of bands out there that function I think in a really healthy zone and everyone contributes and there's a good dialogue. Most people are just regular people, and so when you get into a creative collaboration where everyone's truly invested, all of your little like psychological ticks will come out, because if it's a job and everyone's under contract, then it's real easy to know the boundaries. But when you're just doing it because you love to do it, every like you're just totally I feel like totally exposed. And if you can find one that works like we did, then again, just like with Iffy, it feels a little bit like lightning in a bottle just on the creative side of it. And it's it's really the best, and it's rare.
When Iffy got off the ground, and I'm curious about Iffy because I've never asked you this before, and I know Peak because I'm part of it.
Yeah, 50%.
And this is my couch. Yeah. So my question would be, when you and Tom start doing Iffy, when you literally crack the crust on it, are you thinking through the name? Are you thinking through the clothing? Are you thinking through the stage presence and the group of people that's around you?
No question.
You are.
Yeah. See, again, like that's my process. When it's something like that, I start at the end and I deconstruct. And
was Tom thinking about any of that?
I let Tom work exclusively on the beats. Not let. Yeah. Like that was the process, like we worked, and really only Zach and I ever toured a lot.
Sure.
The creative relationship there was, he is so exceptional in Ableton. He's so exceptional just in hearing, I would bring him these kind of big, vague ideas that I dreamed up, and he's so good at kind of hearing what I mean through all of the enthusiasm and guiding me to a point where it's a actionable idea and something we could even perform to. It was important to know what I was making.
Yeah.
And then figure out the best case the best case climax for it, the best case vision for it, and start there and just kind of build back from there. And so even knowing this is what I'd like it to look like, maybe I can't afford it yet, and so let's find a way to make a low budget version of what I want it to look like. Right. And maybe if this is where I want the energy to be at, but we don't really even have the songs for it yet, let's establish a path to that kind of a live show. And everything about it, the clothes, it's easy, buy it on the internet. And it's like, like I said, even with the name, I needed it to be welcoming. It's a dumb idea. A lot of entertainment is dumb. Like the little videos we send to each other all day long is dumb, but it's supposed to be a bit of a it's a candy bar. It's not going to make you, it's not enlightening anyone, and it's not it's not changing anyone's life any more than any other. It's a candy bar. It's supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to ask too much of you. It's just a way to go have a good time at a show, or and the reason cut Iffy is it's like a sugar diet. And so I needed, because of the nature of it, everything about it serves a purpose. When you imagine your ideal and you're putting yourself either there from square one, as close to there as you can be, or setting yourself on a course to get there. You have, in my opinion, you have to do service to your customer or your audience by seeing it from their perspective almost exclusively.
Yeah.
Because you don't actually matter. You can go post stuff on SoundCloud all day long. No one listens to it. It's
Right.
for you.
Yeah.
And like in that realm, it's for you. But the second you make it a product for the public, if you have to respect your audience enough, and you have to understand your audience enough to build the thing that is going to function the best for them.
Yeah.
And that, again, like, that doesn't matter in any way.
Yeah.
What you're trying to build or what you're trying to sell. If you are inconsiderate to your customer, your audience, what does the guy from Magnetic Field say? If you ignore the audience, they will go away.
Yeah. Totally. Do you think that helps you make decisions when you have that simple idea? Like, do songs come faster because you have a very clear north? Like, we know what this is, we know why we're doing it. That decision is easy to make now.
My songwriting experience is so far down, like it's such a winding place in my songwriting experience, where for me it's sort of like these days the puzzle is just finding time to sit down and be like, hey, I've got time to write a song. If I get to that point, then there are about 100 songs waiting for their turn.
Yeah.
And so if I get time to focus on songwriting, there's nothing to it anymore. But more often, what I find these days is that I'm sort of building entities, and in composing for ensembles and films is not the same. And that's a month-long project, process, and absolutely different. And typically it's commission work, so it's not like you're writing for an audience, but you're not writing for a customer.
Right.
And so in that, it's a completely different headspace. But if you're a touring musician or an aspiring recording artist, you have to build your entity with your audience and your customers in mind, because maybe maybe you're one of the lucky ones that can be like an asshole and people will love you anyways, but like I would rather not. And it does not sound like a great experience to me. And so most of the emotional currency that I get out of building entities and like building bands and brands is pleasing. And profit aside, the energy to get up in the morning and to hit it again can't just come from profit. It has to come from that exchange, to say, I'm taking a chance on this because I think you will love it, and I'm doing this because I think you will love it. And for me, that is the real economy.
I love that, man. I have, and a lot of this is due to the work we've done in Peak. I've started asking people when they come record up here, once we get to that point where they go, well, hey, what do you think? There's always that moment where I go, who is this for? What is it for? Are you putting a record out? Are you trying to reach somebody? Are you trying to get picked up to do a film? Are you trying to get picked up for a label? Are you wanting to tour and this is a way to book shows? Who's the audience? Why are you here?
And if you're, maybe, I think a big school of thought is that whatever you make, you should make it's like your exact vision. And I feel like there's a value in that, but on the other hand, that's the most important question, because a lot of people want to be famous. A lot of people want to be rich. A lot of people want the visibility or whatever. And we don't live in an age, I don't think, where you have to be ashamed of it.
No.
And I feel like, I feel bands there, and about 10 years ago, it seemed like 10 to 15 years ago, bands that would sell songs for like ad posturing and stuff like that would get run out on a rail, and it's like the guy of Montreal when he sold the Outback thing, and it's like, this man has a daughter, as a person with a daughter, you have, a daughter and a dude, and it's like, if I could sell a song to Outback and you call me a sellout about it, you're like, I would have to be like, you're exactly right,
Yep.
you know, and you know, I did,
Yeah,
and I do it again right now, you know, because there's a lot of those artists die broken, hungry, you know, and a lot of the lives fall apart because they can't put the ends together. And
that mentality is a young mentality, in my opinion.
Well, it's
and
both young and it's completely dated.
And I feel like people who, and what I mean by young, maybe not age, but a young experience mentality. People who have not been in a van for 5 years touring, or who have not, with their whole heart, tried to make a living in the industry.
Yeah.
Like, and we talked about this in a different episode, but like, that's why I go back to the question, what is this for? Are you doing this because you want to tour? Are you doing this because you want to sit on your couch and make music all day? Are you doing it because it's a hobby and your mom loves the song you wrote and you really want a recording of it?
Yeah.
Because those are very different things.
You have to understand your desire structure. And I building the apparel brand that I'm working with my wife on right now, it's so important to figure out not just what your milestones are and what your ideal looks like, but you have to understand your desire structure with it. What about it is meant to satisfy you, you know? And if it's profit, that's great.
Yeah.
It's great. You know, it's great to make money, and it's great to do the thing that you're good at too. You know, and if it's creative satisfaction, that it's great too, you know, and it doesn't have to be both, and it doesn't have to be either.
Right.
You know, and maybe it's just your instinct that says it's time to do this, because that's what I do a lot with my stuff. Is I get a weird feeling, and now it's time to write this, and hopefully there'll be an audience for it, and if there's not, for me, that's okay too.
Right.
You know, and because it's probably just the now thing, and I'll have something else to do, you know.
I mean, you and I just recently worked on a secret thing that was very in that week. Like, we were feeling it, we did it, and
now it exists, and
we tried to go back to it after the fact, and you very clearly were like, dude, I can't get in that headspace anymore.
You have to just make the thing when it's time to make the thing, if you have the resources to.
Can we clarify one thing real quick? You said the desire structure. You said something earlier that stuck out to me, where you said, is it to be rich? Is it to satisfy your creative brain? And I want to be really clear that I don't think those things are milestones. Like, that's your desire. But when you come in to make a record and you say something like, I want to be famous, you need a reality check of what your next step is, I feel like, a lot of the times. Well, and keep that desire. Like, that's your desire, that's your drive. Like, keep it plastered to your mirror when you're brushing your teeth in the morning. But, like, that next step up the ladder can't just be, I want to be famous. Like,
fame is a milestone to me, but it's like what I'm talking about is approaching your thing honestly.
Yeah.
You know, and wanting to be a person who is famous for their idea is attainable. Yeah. It's more attainable than it's ever been. It doesn't go as far as it used to, but it definitely is more attainable than ever. And what I mean to say here is there is a culture of shame for wanting success instead of just wanting to, like, be a tortured artist, you know, like
starving to death by yourself and your great ideas.
It's dumb. And it's like, you can love your ideas and you can want success, and I feel like you should want, if a person doesn't want to make money and a person doesn't want their idea to go all the way, then I'm like,
I know what you mean. I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, I would go back there.
Yeah.
Being honest with yourself about your motivation, you know, and setting things like, again, I'll use the words, you know, like rich. You talk about riches, and you want people wanting riches, and people wanting to be famous, and people wanting to be viral, and people wanting to want, you know, like, you have to have those things, and you have to be honest about those things with yourself. You know what I mean? And I think living or subscribing to an age that shames people for wanting security,
Yeah.
You know, that if you were born an incredible piano player,
Yeah.
people who would shame you for wanting to be rich. You know, there are people that get rich playing the piano. And it's like, if I'm born a amazing piano player, I want, you know what I mean? Like, I want to live a life where I'm allowed to do the thing I'm best at and to be fairly compensated for it. There are people that are purely passionate about it, that feel like the pursuit of financial prosperity on the back of their art ruins it.
Yeah.
And those people are also right, you know, because I'm sure that they know how they feel about it, you know, and as long as you're honest about why you're doing it, you're right, you know, and no, it's no one's job to shame you if you know why you're doing what you're doing and who you're doing it for, you know.
100%.
And the whole thing is, for me, is about perspective, and you have to, on this end, you have to be completely honest with yourself about why you're doing it, and on this end, you have to see the finished product, and you have to see it from the perspective of your audience, of your customer, of your web followers, whomever you're doing the thing for. You gotta be it.
Yeah.
At least psychologically, you gotta be it. For me, and there are a million schools of thought, but for me, you gotta be it right away.
Yeah.
And you gotta see what's wrong about it and fix it as you go.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's the for me, the whole success formula is to just be real about why you're doing it. Understand what's going to satisfy you, because it's the satisfaction. Because it's not the money.
No.
It's the satisfaction of having the money, you know? And so, like, you got to figure out every way. If you think you really want to do something, you got to figure out every way you can be satisfied and build a thing that hits as many of those as you can. Yeah. And that's it.
I 100% agree, man. One last question. If that's the mindset, how do you know when it comes time to make a decision right now, right this second, how do you know you're making the right one for you?
You don't. I mean, if it's time to make, like, I don't know if you mean a creative decision or a business decision.
Let's say creative decision.
Well, luckily, we're not generally recording to tape. We're not, you know what I mean? But I
don't think we've ever recorded to tape.
I've been a part of a tape session. It requires razors. Yeah. Anyways, like
chalk, powder, tape, staple things. Yeah.
No, I think with anything in your life, you want to be able to access your experience and your perspective as quickly as you can in those moments, and you make the decision. If it's a business decision, if it's a creative decision, if you know what you're doing, like if you know where you want to be, and you know why you're on your way, I think you just make those decisions as honestly as you can and live with the consequences. Hopefully you can back up if you run off the road.
Command Z, not Control Z, Command Z. Right?
Yeah, there are some things you can't undo, but it's probably not going to be life or death. Yeah. So just recalibrate and hopefully get smarter. Yeah. If you do something right, learn from it. If you do something wrong, learn from it.
Yeah.
And like keep trying things.
Love it, man. Thank you.